Ladies and gentlemen, our next speaker is Dr. Rita Ellithorpe. She's the founder and medical director of the Tustin Longevity Center here in Tustin, California. If you're outside the area, that's just northern Orange County, just below south of Anaheim. So it's a very close to us in the greater Los Angeles area. She received her medical degree, the Chicago Medical School, University of Health Science, obviously in Chicago, and she also is certified in and graduated from Capital University of Integrative Medicine. She's taught integrative medicine, and so she's very well qualified to speak on detoxify, repair, and revitalize your body, prevent and or survive cancer. Dr. Ellithorpe, we really appreciate having you here with us today.
Thank you. I want to thank the American Cancer Control Society for having me, and for Lorraine Rosenthal inviting me to speak. I feel that this is a very important topic. It might sound mundane by the word detoxify, repair, and revitalize your body, but the most important thing is the secondary title called Prevent and or Survive Cancer. Now, I want to do a little screening here. How many in this audience are physicians, standard allopathic medically trained physicians? Okay, and how many in this audience are chiropractic physicians? Another group, okay. How many here are registered nurses? A larger group. How many are osteopathic physicians? How many are naturopathic physicians? Okay, and how many of you are in allied healthcare professions like, Cohen hydrotherapy, reflexology, herbal oriental medicine, Reifi, polarity therapy, Bach herbal remedies? I could go on from my doctorate in integrative medicine. How many are you in the allied healthcare? Another large. How many of you are just real folk people? All right. I'm a real folk person too. And I just got a phone call from my sister 2 hours ago. My brother-in-law was ushered to the hospital. She had her 60th birthday. I know Marvin's older than her by a few years, so we'll call him about 64, Vietnam vet. Nice guy. And he was at square dancing yesterday night, and while square dancing, his legs didn't start working. And he sat down, felt better, and then he stood up, and then his leg was bad, and then he started having slurred speech, so they rushed him to the Louisville University Medical Center, and they did an MRI, CT of his brain, and they told my sister, everything's fine. You know, this is not cardiovascular. He has a normal CT, thank the Lord, and MRI of the brain. And then they proceeded to release him this morning, and they assured my sister there's nothing with the circulation problem wrong. It might be a seizure due to his Vietnam War concussion or whatever, but he has a normal CT and MRI of the brain. And so what do they give him? They gave him anti-seizure medicines. They gave him platelet inhibitor medication to stop clotting of the blood. And they gave him anti-cholesterol medication. How many of you do you think when I tell you that his leg wasn't working right and he had a slurred speech, was having a seizure? Raise your hand if you think he had a seizure. All right, some, all right. I want to always have an open mind. How many of you think he has a circulation problem in the tiny capillaries of his brain? All right. I want to see you when I'm sick. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I'm a standard trained allopathic physician from the University of Chicago, University of Health Sciences, and I am a product of your standard medical education. However, I'm also the product of being around some wonderful standard medical doctors. I'm talking about my doctor. When I was 16 years old, I had a pan-myocarditis, meaning every single layer of my heart muscle, the outside, the middle muscle, and the inner lining of my heart muscle was shot, and I was in coronary care. I was in the cardiac care unit when they were new things back in the 60s, so don't age me too much. But Dr. Ray Evers, are there any people who know the name of Dr. Ray Evers, one of the founders of the American College for the Advancement of Medicine? My wonderful father in food research science got me to the man, the wonderful medically trained physician. So as I do see that we're angry that standard allopathic physicians have lost their way, I want you to forgive them because they can come back to us, okay? And they're going to come back through you and through you becoming an informed patient population. And I have the greatest excitement and encouragement for you, the people who attend a meeting like this put on by people like Lorraine Rosenthal and the head of the Cancer Control Society. And I want to applaud you and the entire people here. All right, now I've been asked an impossible task. I've been asked to talk about something that I could spend hours on. So I'm going to run through things. I'm going to tell you what I'm going to do on my slides. I'm going to talk about a problem that we're facing because we're in the 21st century, basically toxins. And I'm going to talk about the word detoxify, but I'm going to talk in a different modality. I'm not talking about hydrocolon therapy. I'm not talking about a liver cleanse. I'm not talking about the Master's Cleanse diet program and so forth, although I'm not saying they're not important. I'm talking about something very special that is the foundation upon which this whole movement in informed patient and alternative, integrative, complementary, whatever you want to call it, this was founded, ladies and gentlemen, on wonderful physicians, allopathically trained physicians like Dr. Ray Evers and many other wonderful physicians in the 1950s who heard about a unique process of detoxification. And that's why I, within 3 years of having my pan-myocarditis, 4 months in the intensive or coronary care units at Alexian Brothers Hospital in Elk Grove Village, Illinois. I grew up in the outskirts there. I was able to pass my ROTC Air Force flight physical to join ROTC as one of the very first women in ROTC because I needed a scholarship to go to medical school because I didn't have the money, and I passed it. All right, so I didn't have cancer, but I had something that only less than 10% of people survived in the 1960s, which is a pan-myocarditis. So I have been around the concept of chelation therapy and alternative medicine since I worked with my father at 4 years of age in Armour Food Research Labs in the Chicago Stockyards of Chicago. And so I have many people to thank. And I thank also the alternative movement and all those people coming along. So let's move on with this exciting topic that we have. Okay, the air we breathe and the food we're eating and the water we're drinking, we all know here that it can impact our health. Would you all agree? Everyone raise your hand? Absolutely. And we know all these things are important because they are filled with toxins. Absolutely. All right, now, why shouldn't we be concerned about these toxins and their established relationship between cancer, heart disease, and other chronic diseases, especially now that cancer is the #1 cause of death or in competition with heart disease? And what is more dastardly, why I'm passionate in front of you, ladies and gentlemen, is because now the leading cause of cancer in children between the ages of 1 and 15, or the leading cause of death, is cancer in children as a cause of death. Now, accidents are still the #1 cause, but if you're saying what's the disease, it's cancer. How many people are upset with that set of facts? I'm upset. All right, toxins are everywhere. They're in our bodies. We store them. Do you know you have toxic dump sites in your body, your fat, your bone, your ligaments? Do you know that they are causing devastating diseases? They're eroding your life and health. They're crippling our children. They're killing us and our families. Why aren't we openly discussing these things in medicine? Now, heavy metals is a part of the focus where I'm taking you today. Why? Because the whole industry in what we're here today was founded in 1950 when EDTA, ethylene diamine tetracetic acid, chelation therapy to enhance circulation to the body, especially for coronary vascular disease, which you saw Dr. Contreras talk about how is killing so many people per 100,000 in the 50s and the 60s. Well, golly gosh, EDTA, a non-patentable drug, was doing a lot of good. And some very forward-thinking, you can't buy these physicians out because they love their family and they love their patients. They went ahead and they started looking into chelation therapy. And what was it doing for circulation? What was it doing? They founded the organizations like ACAM and the Great Lakes organization in Zion, Illinois, about chelation therapy, and they were employing high-dose vitamin C therapies back then. So when we get angry at our physicians for giving us 7-minute visits and not listening to us, you got to remember that's not all those physicians, ladies and gentlemen. There are some very, very good forefathers of this whole movement, and I intend to honor them today and every day of my life because that's why I'm here today. Amen. All right, heavy metals is what chelation therapy got rid of, and they were growing in their knowledge, and there's myths and mythologies about chelation therapy and how it affects us and how it helps us and how it keeps us healthier and prevention with regard to cancer and heart disease along with many other diseases. Heavy metals and other toxins hurt our cell membranes. They damage them. It's like grinding up glass and drinking it every day in small amounts. Do you have a detox pattern to get rid of ground glass? No. Do you have a detox pattern ready to get rid of these slicing and dicing heavy metals, oxidative, burning Bunsen burners in your body? No, you don't. And do you accumulate them every day? Yes, you do. They're eroding our lives, our children, and they're killing us. Now, through the cell membrane damage, if I'm technologically correct here, I think I'm going the right direction. Here they go. They hurt the membranes and they produce free radicals. We've all heard of oxidative burning, damaging of the cell membranes, free radicals. We are all burning up, ladies and gentlemen, slowly. We're all burning up. If you came back to this podium 500 years from now, this podium will be oxidized, mixing in with the oxygen of this room, and it'll be a pile of dust or cracked apart, right? You don't see this thing breathing, do you, or eating, but it's fallen apart too, and so are we. Here's a picture of the cell membrane. I want you to understand that this cell membrane is made up of phospholipids. It's a bilipid membrane layer. It's very unique, very important. All cell signaling, all information occurs through a healthy membrane surface. Here's what a free radical damaging episode can do, like a meteorite damaging it, okay, slicing through it. How long, ladies and gentlemen, do you think you can ignore this? And even if you take all the wonderful medicines or vitamins or diet, if you're not working on repairing this thing here, that vitamin C, that super duper herb, that super duper, whatever the super duper thing it is going to pass right through that poor injured cell membrane. So you've got to stop some of this damage and you got to get into repair, ladies and gentlemen. Here's a picture. See how these cells over here are just dissolving away? We have through a speeded up microscopic videography, we're showing how these are just being pelted away by free radical oxidative damage. Over here, in the same time, you can see various things going on, but certainly nothing of the destructive nature that you're seeing. You are witnessing cell membrane damage from free radicals. Now, some of the most severe items in the 21st century are lead, cadmium, mercury, aluminum, nickel, arsenic, and many others, okay? Ladies, I like to use my cell phone. It was in that mode that my sister called me about my brother-in-law, and I'm thankful for it. But when I'm holding that cell phone, it's damaging me. When I'm using my car, it's putting out toxins. When we're using the airplanes, 5,000 airplanes fly over us every day, and they salt and pepper us with heavy metals because petrochemicals, the hydrocarbons needed to power the engines of our planes and our cars and our trains and many other things, require oxidative burn, a burst, a bang, a burst. And that burst occurs better when there are little bits of templates of metals in the gasoline. That's why you had leaded gasoline. And when I was a flight surgeon, the JP4 jet fuel had other parts that were heavy metals in it. So when that combustion hit, it would be bang, 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 boom, and you took off. And let me tell you, I don't want to backfire when I'm in an airplane. Do you want to backfire in an airplane? You want a smooth burn of those petrochemicals, don't you? So how do we live in the 21st century with the gift of why I can use this laser printer and the battery in it powering it, helping me to disseminate this, and yet talk about the dangers of the cadmium ions that I'm taking on by using this? Well, I'll tell you how. It's through chelation therapy. Low levels are what I'm talking about. There is no safe level of heavy metals anywhere in any living thing. Zero. We're talking about lead, cadmium, mercury, aluminum, nickel, arsenic. These are the most severe, but there are many others. These low levels are becoming dangerous. They are accumulating. You inhale the dust of the air, and there are heavy metals in it. There's barium in it. There's aluminum in it. There's lead in it. These low levels are being stored in your body. You don't have inherent healthy competitive detox pathways to get rid of this stuff. Low levels are becoming higher all the time. Multiple toxins are compounding the issue, and it's not even being addressed. This is not a problem that I've identified. This is recognized by our Environmental Protection Agency, our Food and Drug Agency, our Centers for Disease Control, our individual state health departments. This is a problem worldwide. Treatments, we've got to get into prevention. We've got to get medicines with proven results or medical comprehensive approaches and get out of crisis management from the accumulative damage that these things do. Now let's talk about the damage. Let's go to some peer-reviewed literature. Archives of Internal Medicine 2002 published that levels that are low, the key word, ladies and gentlemen, up in the title is low lead levels, low lead levels. In the National Health and Nutrition Educational Survey number 3, under 30 micrograms per deciliter, you're considered not at risk. Well, let's look at some parallels. Let's look at cancer. Do you see that almost 70% of all cancer deaths are linked to low levels of lead? I'm going to repeat that. Do you realize that nearly 70% of every cancer death is related to low levels of lead? And that's just one metal, and we have multiple levels in us. Every one of us in this room is sitting here with it. Do you realize 50% nearly of every cardiovascular death is linked to low levels of lead? When you have high blood pressure and you go see your allopathic physician, how many of you had the doctor say, well, let's check your lead level? Do any of you have an idea what lead does to the lining of your blood vessels? It burns it. Remember the vision of that membrane damaged? There are delicate communication entities in the membrane, one of which is nitric oxide synthetase, an enzyme that helps make nitric oxide for the dilation of the blood vessel. Well, if you're damaging the ability to dilate and relax your blood vessels through the action of nitric oxide because it's being damaged by gradual accumulation of lead, wouldn't you expect to have a problem? Yes, you would. And it says it right here. Now remember, 30 micrograms per deciliter is considered acceptable. And it used to be 60 micrograms per deciliter before. The World Health Organization talked about that. Okay, in my patient population, I have looked at hundreds of my patients, and 100% of every patient that I got a drop of blood out of them, just a single straight drop, had heavy metals, multiple. Nobody had none. Nobody had one. Everybody had 3 or 4 or 5. Probably would have found more if the test surveyed for 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 or more. Okay? So, every one of us in this room has this problem. It's linked with 70% of our cancer deaths, half of our cardiovascular deaths. Why aren't we discussing this? 22% of those found were in elevated ranges, even above the acceptable ranges, and 17% were in potentially toxic zone. Add those together, that's 39% of the 100%. Nearly 40% of my random patient survey. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a problem. All right, quickly, I'm going to run through this. It's everywhere. Sources of aluminum, one of them. You can see them, your cookware, aluminum foil, antacid, antiperspirants, lipstick, on and on, tap water. Health conditions associated with aluminum, respiratory problems, coughing, asthma, Alzheimer's. About 1 in every 40 seconds is newly diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease. Wonder why. Bone disease, skeletal, skin rashes, neurological development in children. Sources of toxic metals, arsenic, air pollution. It's in sampling of our air. Where is the arsenic coming from the air? Antibiotics given to their livestock, drinking water, fish, insecticide, herbicides, meats, pesticides, seafood, glass, wood preservatives. Do you know that they're advising you now not to let your children play on the deck you built for them? Don't play on the deck I just built for you, or wash your hands. Put a pair of slacks on her so she doesn't, my husband's a carpenter. I helped him build decks. Even when I was a doctor, I enjoyed it. Okay. Arsenic, fluoridation, arsenic, the hazardous behind the faucet. It's now being considered a class 1 human carcinogen. The Environmental Protection Agency has proposed reducing the minimal level of exposure from what they said, 50 parts per billion to 5. Thank you. Health conditions associated with heavy metals, arsenic, lung cancer, skin cancer, bladder cancer, liver cancer, kidney cancer, prostate cancer. Other associations with cancer would be sore throats, lung irritation, nausea, vomiting. I would tell you about 99% of everybody coming to my clinic in the past 7 years has a low white blood cell count. And after working with me, they get better. Abnormal heart rhythms, palpitations, not treated with beta blockers and Coreg and so forth. They got better. Damage to blood vessels, pins and needles, tingling, darkening of the skin, small corns or warts. Interesting. What are the sources of cadmium? All right, again, air. It's the air we breathe, ladies and gentlemen. Bone meal, cigarette smoke, in the foods, coffee, meats, fungicide, incinerators, mining fungicides, batteries. Every time you're handling your batteries, oxides, paints, just look at the list. What about side effects of it? Vomiting, diarrhea, kidney disease, fragile bones. Do you know that when they're incidentally doing osteoporosis studies on what is demineralizing bones, they're finding lead pour out and other heavy metals? They're finding lead pouring out of the minerals of the body. Your body's so starved for minerals, it'll take up lead or cadmium. And men's prostate looks like they're taking up cadmium. Close correlation with that in prostate cancer, the #1 killer of men. Okay, mercury. We've heard a lot about mercury. I won't spend a lot of time. It's in the air. Everything's in the air. Cosmetics, batteries, foods, tap water. You can see the list. It is everywhere. Our teeth, you know about that. I won't say much. We absorb it. It accumulates in our critical organs, brain, kidneys. When I tested my own 2 sons, I had 16 fillings of mercury in my mouth. I gave birth at age 28 and 30. When my sons were 18 and 20 years old, I did heavy metal challenges on them with EDTA IV treatment with 1 DMSA 500 milligram, and they all had elevated levels, and none of my sons ate bad. I made them eat. I crushed up the vitamins. They did what I said. And they had heavy metals. They had toxic levels. They got them from me, most likely, and maybe the fish. Okay, aluminum is linked to Alzheimer's disease. 7 studies are related to this research and implicating it. Case control studies show that the lifetime exposure of aluminum in your antiperspirants and acids will put you up as much as 300% higher risk of this. Lead. Lead is another interesting one. Air, it's in the air. It's in, it was in the paint up until the 90s in this country. It's everywhere. You can just look at the list for yourself. And we have copies of my slides, if you like, afterwards at my booth. My booth is at booth 101. But it impacts the central nervous system. Do you know that there are plenty of studies showing that violence and, untrainable behavior of adolescents increases as they get more urban in their training, where they're inhaling more lead? You get to more rural kids and their lead level's low and they're much better students and they're not as violent or reactive in their behavior. Kidneys, decreased reaction time, memory, it's a carcinogen, anemia. Okay, our children are more vulnerable. The oxidative stress of my parents was significant. My generation was very significant, and our children were compressing oxidative exposure not only to heavy metals, but of course plasticizers, xenobiotics, dioxin, polychlorinated phenols, things like that. Okay, it's giving us premature birth, smaller babies, the mental abilities, learning difficulties, reduced growth, attention deficit disorder. You know the whole story. It's exploding. Okay. Nickel, you can see it in many things. I'm just going to jump through it here. You can look up nickel on the computer and how you get a hold of it. You can associate it with disease if you cross-reference nickel and Google disease. Apathy, nausea, insomnia, dizziness. Just look at the list. All right, so we have a problem. These metals are associated with cancer. Look at skin, lung, bladder with arsenic. Liver, prostate. That's why we're looking at this very seriously. Mercury. Look at all the cancers associated with all these metals. Good research. We need to look at this more seriously. Okay, we need to get them out of us. Well, if they don't come out of us naturally and they just build up and stockpile in us, then how do we do it? Yes, I know there's chlorella. Yes, I know there's cilantro. Yes, I know even high-dose vitamin C therapy has some chelation abilities. Yes, I know of these alternatives, but when I see people coming into me with angina, Alzheimer's, pre-demential tendencies, high blood pressure, cancer. I had a 15-year-old girl the other day come in, parotid gland cell cancer, 15. My God. Anyway, it's not right, so we got to get rid of this. So the EDTA has been approved, ethylene diamine tetraacetic acid, around 80 years for lead removal. It removes a wide variety of things, and I've done studies on this. It avoids the expensive IV time and invasiveness. Major research shows that 90% reduction in cancer mortality after chelation therapy in urban areas in paired comparable groups, smokers and non-smokers. This is how we use it. It's in a suppository. There's 30 in a jar. We recommend 3 over a 6-month period of time, basically 1 every other night until you get through 90 suppositories. Now, does it work? That's what it looks like. Well, here's my study. I published in animal studies and human studies that the bioavailability, now, of course, if you put it right in your vein, that's the gold standard. The EDTA is 100% right into your blood. But if you put it in the transrectal methodology, 36% is absorbed. Do you know that's better than any other pharmaceutical transrectal delivery system of EDTA? Now, more importantly, if you look at the IV, the tissue penetration is very low. We almost quadruple the tissue penetration. And the time in the body was 1.5 hours to 8 hours. This is the product I've tested. This is the product I use. I no longer do chelation therapy IV. I only use it for testing modalities in a controlled fashion pre and post. We looked at children in one study. These children just gave us a urine sample, and the people who studied this found very little lead. We gave them one suppository of Detoxamin, 1,000 milligrams, and look at how much lead they peed out the next day. Is that incredible? Do you have it hidden in you? Yes, you do. And then we put them on a 30-day course, and they came down very nicely. Does this work? Yes, it does. We did a prostate study with men looking at chronic prostatism. We looked at the majority of these men having prostate cancer, and they had urinary symptoms. We used the chronic prostate symptom score that is an accepted study modality for their symptoms, and we had significant reduction in these male prostate studies. We also looked at the overall chronic pain, and it was significantly reduced. We did the International Prostate Symptom Score Survey in our study with Detoxamin. We also employed this with tetracycline and with a multi-mineral, and we're publishing this as we discuss it. We had significant reductions in many of these parameters, in many of the symptoms that men suffer from prostatism. Overall, we had a nice, statistically significant drop. Does this work? It certainly does. Here's a case study, just a random patient. I didn't look through my patient files and say, oh, go find me a good result. No, I just named off 3 names, and my office staff labeled it up. Over the years, here's a woman with chronic fatigue and fibromyalgia. Look at the arsenic level, 220 dropped within 6 months to 4.5. Look at her lead, less than half. Look at mercury dropping. Nobody can tell me that transrectal EDTA suppositories doesn't pull out mercury. Here's another case. Let's look at the mercury here. 30 to 2.6. Nobody can tell me EDTA transrectally does not reduce mercury. Here's the lead, nickel. Here's another example. Lead, nice drops. Cadmium is very hard. These people come back over years and years and years. Here's a hair analysis study, pre and post. So any way you look at it, this stuff works. It's non-invasive. It's quick and easy to use when you go to bed at night. It's inexpensive. 30 chelations in my office is going to cost $3,500, $4,000. 6 months, or roughly the equivalent of 30 IVs, is going to cost about $500, $600. It's safe. It's broad spectrum. It's FDA approved, and it's got an 80-year track record. I had a 63-year-old woman with ovarian cancer, metastatic, age 4. This was a death sentence. Her CA-125 was over 1,000. She had elevated liver functions. She did 45 chemotherapies with her oncologist in an integrative pattern of care. And then I gave her EDTA chelation and high-dose vitamin C. We do a whole program nutritionally, enzyme, antioxidant therapies, but I insist on detoxing them because of the high correlation with death rates due to heavy metals. It opens up the microvasculature. I don't care how good your vitamin is or how good your chemotherapy is. If it doesn't get to the target issue, you're wasting time. Chelation therapy opens the circulation. So, a year later, she had a PET scan, negative. Liver mets, clear, tingling, much resolved. Her CA-125 consistently 3 times in a row, 3 months apart, is 7. Blood count, chemistry, fasting blood sugar. We keep on a low carbohydrate diet so we don't stimulate their insulin. This stuff works. I have used this in hundreds of thousands of patients. Whenever you have a better blood supply, everything's better. Your mental energy is better, your general energy, your endurance, your blood pressure, cardiovascular performance. I have many men coming to me just for the erectile function. This is like Viagra because it allows the nitric oxide synthetase to work so that your L-arginine in your diet can make nitric oxide so you can have an erection. So overall improved quality of life. We remove these toxins, we repair the cell membranes with peer-reviewed research. I've published on this, how I repair it with phospholipid replacement therapy, and I use an aggressive enzyme antioxidant therapy to address all my patients no matter what it is. We improve their antioxidants, we reduce their DNA damage, we give them a whole plethora of treatment nutritionally from IV. We work integratively with their standard doctors if they choose chemotherapy or not. This is what we use, enzymes, a little summary of it. We encourage stress management, sleep, diet, reduce carbohydrates, good water, exercise. And for more information, if you're interested in this, please see booth 101. And I want to acknowledge a very special person I met here today, a man, Alan Stang. When I was a little teenager, I was in a youth camp going around learning about my freedom of health choice, and he was there helping me. And I want you to seek his booth out. I don't know what his number is, but I tell you, faithful people show up to organizations like this. And when you see them 40 years later and they're the same people, you have a lot of confidence in what you're doing here, ladies and gentlemen, and I applaud you for coming. Thank you.